Hey, welcome to the Canadian Country Music Podcast. If you're listening from YouTube, hello everybody. Nice to see you. Hendrik and I are hopefully in the live chat right now, so you guys can come say hi to us. If you are listening on Anchor or Spotify or any major streaming platform, thank you so much for tuning in. I am super excited about this podcast today because I have wanted to ask this man many questions and have him be able to sit here and just be able to answer me and no one else right now. So please, everybody, give a warm welcome to the one, the only, Mr. Soundcheck Entertainment himself, Hendrik Pape. Thank you, Hendrik, for coming on.
Hey, how's it going, Tim?
I am so good right now. It has been an incredible day personally for me, and I am super happy to have Soundcheck Entertainment's own here with me because I know a lot of people are going to want to listen to this podcast and try and get as much knowledge out of that brain as possible.
So before we get into your questions, I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Tim Albertson here and give you a chance to tell everybody why you're so excited today. Because I mean, I think it's worth kind of sharing and sharing that excitement. It's big. It's big for you. And I think it's big for any emerging artist in your position. So go ahead, Tim, tell everybody.
Well, today, while I was sitting outside, enjoying the sunshine and working on this podcast and figuring out what kind of questions I wanted to give you, my good friend Susie Corey sent me a message, and she just got into Nashville to go into more songwriting and more songs for her new album coming out. And she posted that my song just went on to Sirius XM CBC radio, so it is now on channel 171 of Sirius XM, and that is amazing for me.
That's awesome. And you could tell, I mean, you're so excited. I mean, just the excitement on your face. And I know that's huge for you. I mean, I know that this is a big single. I know when you first sent it to me, how long ago has that been now? 3-4 months now, yeah. I guess. And we were both, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a great song. It's going to be a huge song. And I know that there's been some struggle, some frustration with it that, I mean, I'm sure we'll discuss at some point.
Absolutely. At some point we'll have that talk.
On some levels, it didn't quite perform the way you had hoped. Mm-hmm. But as we've also found that you've had a little bit warmer reception from radio than from the streaming world. And I think
absolutely,
if you're gonna pick one of the two, go with the radio.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town, so the only thing we had is radio. And even as Spotify and all these new streaming platforms came out, it seemed as though radio was still holding its own here, that people still really encouraged radio. It wasn't until COVID hit where I hit the bubble where I had to expand out that I actually saw how big streaming and whatnot had come from. So our history together, obviously you are basically the mastermind behind everywhere that a bar like this has been able to go to in terms of streaming and radio and everything. But where I first actually heard from you was years back when Soundcheck Entertainment was first starting off. And you had actually done a couple of reviews for local artists in Thunder Bay, as well as a band called the Honest Heart Collective. Now, the Honest Heart Collective have been friends of mine for a long time with Ryan and Nick and the boys. So when I saw that a business from outside of our hometown had a great interest in a band from Thunder Bay, it really opened my eyes to want to start working with others. So from a very, very long time ago, I had you circled off as one day we are going to work together. And I am super happy that we did with a bar like this, because the success that we're having now is absolutely amazing. And I can't thank you enough for it.
No, you know what? It's my pleasure. And it's funny that you bring up, Honest Heart Collective, because, I'm actually a big fan. Have been, I don't remember this first song that I heard that really caught my ear, even where I heard it. Maybe on the satellite radio, I don't even remember anymore. It's been a number of years, but it kind of goes to, I guess, what I've wanted to do or what I've been trying to do with Soundcheck over the last decade, and that's to find and I guess discover and reach out to emerging artists at all levels of their, I guess, startup, if you want to call it that, and of all genres, and really kind of work with them. I mean, initially for the last, I guess, 8 or so years, or the first 8 or so years, it was from a media perspective and using our platform to promote them. And of course, through that, I mean, what I've discovered I guess by accident, which is a lot of things have kind of come along. You do something, hey, oh, that's cool. I didn't expect that was going to
Yeah.
happen, or I had no idea what I was doing, and stuff just kind of, I guess happy accidents is kind of a good way to call it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nothing was ever planned. There was no real strategy for this and this to happen. I would do something and then, oh, okay, well, that's kind of cool. That happened like that. And then even hearing how you first came across, right? It's kind of that organic virality, I guess you can call it. And you can't use the term super spreader these days because it's got a whole different meaning to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was kind of the same kind of concept, right? Where the emerging artists, because, much like you as a fan and a friend of the band, you see a review from somebody that's not local. And you're like, hey, there's somebody that's not from my hometown that actually knows about this band too.
Yeah.
I thought that everybody here, their fan base was local to Thunder Bay, not Ontario or not Canada or what have you. So it's kind of neat in the sense that I find more so than the big names. That's why I always tended to focus on the emerging. Not that you also learn that you have to cover the big names too. It's kind of part of what makes you credible. But covering not the little guy. I mean, I don't want to, I find it's almost like demeaning.
The independents,
the artist starting out.
Yeah.
Because they usually have, I mean, for the most part, unless you're really bad, have a basic fan base. And so that artist is going to share it. Their fan base is going to latch on and they're going to share it. They're going to follow you and make sure that you're aware of future music from either that band or some other bands that they know that you might like too. And so it kind of started to spin like that, but then you get that residual effect, right? So as they're sharing it, it goes out, and then, okay, you might cover bigger bands. You might cover like a festival, and, so then, bigger names, bigger or higher level people start to see it, until eventually you might actually make a difference in, I guess, the career and the future of these artists, right?
Oh,
so
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do. Not so much to, I mean, I'm not a record label, I guess, yet would be I mean, who knows what's going to come as this has been evolving even over the last couple of years. But at least to help build up the profile for these artists and the awareness and the fan base, so that they're in a position where either a record label or a pro management company can look at them and say, hey, I mean, there's something here worth looking at and worth considering to kind of take under our wing and take to the next level. I mean, if we can do that for an artist, and I mean, there's a few that were kind of, I don't know if you want to call it credited with, I think it's kind of, we may have helped kind of push, to get to that point just by paying attention, I guess is a good way to put it. But I mean, I've always looked at it in the sense that every superstar today was in your shoes, or the Honest Heart Collector's shoes, or Susie Corey's shoes, or Paige Rutledge, who we both interviewed last week, in their shoes at some point in their career, right? Nobody starts out and goes from, hey, I want to record a single, to arena tours overnight.
Exactly.
It just doesn't.
None of us can be Justin Bieber.
And you know what? It didn't start that way for him either. I mean, it's easy to say. I mean, it was a different trajectory, and it's completely different in the pop world than it is in the. You have to look at it in the sense. I mean, how many bars do you go to and see a Justin Bieber like act performing? You don't. It's just it's not a thing.
No.
R&B, you might get some dance acts in the nightclubs in the big cities, but most small town bars, it's country rock, classic rock, that kind of sound.
A little bit of heavy every now and then mixed in there. Yeah.
Right. So whereas pop artists, it's of course it's pop because it's popular. Not that country and stuff is, but it's a whole different level of popular.
Yeah.
They can build their careers by simply putting stuff on YouTube. And so they're recording most often covers every once in a while. They might throw an original, and then they grow their career that way. Right. And so again, the trajectory is completely different. Now, these, of course, are artists that can do massive arena shows in what seems like overnight. But again, like I said, there is really no in between. You go from the YouTubes to the big shows, maybe opening for a big show.
Yeah.
But there's very little of that in between. It's happening. You're just really not seeing it. So the
Yeah. It's a
trajectory
lot
is
of behind the
similar,
scenes.
right? The trajectory is similar. You're just not. It's not as visible as with the country and the rock genre.
Well, sir, you've touched on it briefly here, but for people who are brand new to Soundcheck Entertainment, can you give like just a brief bio of both yourself and the company?
Well, I'll give you the background first. So it's 10
Perfect.
years old on June 21st, 2021 is when we celebrate our 10-year anniversary officially. Um, yeah, for me too. I mean, would you have ever thought that, that we would hit 10 years, but that 10 years down the road, I would only be a really small piece of the. I mean, okay, maybe the last year I've been it, because
Mhm.
there really hasn't been a whole lot else going on, aside from a few shows, and I've had some luck to get some amazing photographers out to a couple shows in the last year. Not as many as usual, but I mean, at least something. Um, but if we kind of roll back the clock 10 years, I mentioned the kind of the happy accidents a few minutes ago.
Mhm.
That's actually how Soundcheck started. It was by complete accident. Um, I work in IT. I do absolutely, my career has nothing to do with music, nothing to do with marketing. I went from fixing computers, building networks, fixing networks, retail support to, all that kind of stuff. I do IT in the federal government now. Um, so, it's completely not related to what I do for Soundcheck at all. And I've never really done anything professionally in the music business. Um, but so 10 years ago, I was actually a technical trainer for the Department of National Defense at the military base in Kingston, Ontario. And I came across, I guess it would have been Facebook at the time, like the early days of Facebook,
Mhm.
a
The
posting
Facebook.
from the Ottawa Citizen that they were going to have a contest. They had a concept that I thought was really cool, and they were calling it the Festival Goer Blog. So their concept, in theory, and you can tell me if this kind of sounds familiar,
Mhm.
but their concept was to have multiple writers/photographers cover the many festivals in Ottawa for a summer. And so they were taking submissions. There was going to be a
Yeah.
different writer/photographer per event, and you know, and so on and so forth. So we would get access to the show, write about it. They would
Mhm.
have different photographer, and then we would submit to their blog. So I was like, yeah, I really really like the concept. So, anyways, I mean,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
time, I had a blog uh, on the Blogger platform. I think it still exists. I don't think I ever took it down, but it called Hendrik Rambles because that's exactly what it was. Ask me what theme it was, and I'll tell you it was anything from politics
Yeah.
to American Idol.
It was
Uh,
whatever was on your mind, eh?
yeah, I mean, it was if something struck me that I felt that was worth ranting about,
Mhm.
uh, whether it was politically, maybe a TV show or a movie that I watched that just, you go see something, you go to a movie or something, and you walk out of that, and you have this urge. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me that has this, but you have this urge where you need to tell people about it,
Yeah,
and you need to go
absolutely.
out there and you
Yeah.
need to say, hey, I mean, I want to know more, or I want to share my thoughts. I can't just express like, yeah, this movie was great. I have to put it in writing, and I have
Godzilla
to
versus
publish
Kong. I
something.
wanted to scream off a rooftop how
Yeah,
much I enjoyed that movie because I
yeah.
thought
I
everybody
mean,
was giving it a bad name, and I was like, no, this
yeah,
is
we won't get into details on that because I don't think I have the same opinion on that
great.
one as you. But I mean,
we could
definitely.
we could later on.
But I mean, there's definitely, I mean, actually, most recently, as bizarre as it is, I can't. Is it Raya? The movie on Disney Plus, the latest
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
Disney
yeah,
movie,
yeah.
Raya and the Last Dragon or whatever it was called.
That's it. Yeah,
Um,
I knew
I
it had
can't think
dragon
of
in it.
a movie in recent history that has brought me to tears. And
Mhm.
my wife will never let me live it down because at the end of that movie, I was crying like a baby. Still can't figure out why. It struck me, and it was just, I don't know, this coming together at the end, and it just, I think with the pandemic and everything, it all just kind of came in
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
So it's one of those things. Something like that would make me go and write about it.
I wear
And
my heart on
so,
my sleeve, so like the littlest things make me cry.
yeah, so
Yeah.
to me, so I had this. So, anyways, I mean, not a professional writer by any means. I did have a background. I mean, I did go to school for radio broadcasting and journalism. I didn't finish. I think I spent most of my courses at the bar. Uh, I'm not gonna cover that up. I didn't spend as much time in class as I needed to.
Did you get good photos at least?
No, because I'm not a photographer either. So, and I didn't have a good enough. I don't know if I had a cell phone back then.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking. This would have been. Well, I would have if I had graduated in '95. So that's a long time ago.
I would have been 6 years old, Hendrik.
Yeah, that's
6.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 18. But yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, we had the campus pub. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called the Wall, Canada College, North Bay, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they called it the Wall was because, of course, Canada College and Nipissing University share the same building. So the pub was by both of them, but university, a little higher class than the college. Well, the two student organizations, they could or didn't or whatever, they didn't get along. So they actually built a partition down the middle, which was never used because what's the point? You got two really, really small bars or one big bar.
Exactly.
Right. So, and it was just, those old plastic or whatever partitions that you put across that they always get stuck. So they just never bothered using it.
Exactly.
And so anyways, it wasn't a huge venue, but they would have some huge bands come through that. Tea Party, Big Wreck, Big Sugar. I mean, try taking the loudest band in Canada with Big Sugar and throwing it into this really tiny bar.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd spend way too much time there playing pool and drinking during the day when I shouldn't have been, rather than going to class. And so, you can't graduate from school if you're not going to class.
No, true that. I've learned that also the hard way.
I just felt to me that, we were still doing stuff the old school. I don't know if anybody that's listening to this went through radio or is in radio. But when I went through school for radio, we were still doing the editing with the reel-to-reel machine. So you would record it, and you have to splice it, and I didn't like doing that very well. So I've actually gotten a little bit better doing it on the digital sense.
Yeah, digital is a lot easier.
Probably do okay, but the whole reel-to-reel, once you splice that tape, if you splice it in the wrong spot. So anyways, I go off topic too quickly or too easily. So I had a little bit of background, but I'm not a writer by any means. And so I applied to this contest. I'm like, so look, I mean, I'm not a professional writer. I've done a little bit. Like I said, I did a co-op in journalism for a local newspaper. I actually, I was in a high school band, and we went to Florida New York and Florida. And I actually covered our trip to New York for the local newspaper. Which I thought was kind of cool. I was the only person at the time to actually have a byline from outside of the country.
Yeah.
So that was kind of some clout. But so anyways, I applied, and shockingly, they're like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you come out and cover the Capitol Hoedown," which is the very short-lived country music festival that came to Ottawa. And so I would have been for the second year. And so I was like, cool. So, I mean, I got free ticket. And I went. And so I said to them, I said, look, I would like to do more than just cover the event. I would like to kind of, preview some of the acts that are coming and maybe do some interviews. And so
absolutely.
I didn't get any interviews lined up because I wasn't really comfortable with the interview thing at that time. Still not really. So I was doing previews, and they thought it was great, and I thought it was great. I went and did the show, had a lot of fun with it. And so then they said, of course, at the end, they're like, would you like to do it again next year? I'm like, yeah. So it was interesting because they have, I don't know, a dozen or more music festivals in Ottawa every year. Now, I don't know if you remember the year that Ottawa Blues Fest, the stage collapsed, so Cheap Trick was on the stage.
I do recall that. Yeah.
So that was the year that this all happened, that this was all that soundtrack was born. So that'd be 10 years ago this summer. So anyways, so I did the country festival, which was a few weeks before. And so then, it was either it must have been after, because I think it was in August. But anyways, so they have all these festivals. I was the only one that showed up. and did it. Everybody else took their tickets and ran. The photographer that was doing Blues Fest shot 3 of the, I think it was 12, 13 days of the festival, and that was it.
Oh my
And then I think 2 weeks after, she posted something about the stage. Oh yeah, I wasn't even there, and all this kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness.
So, anyways,
Ugh.
it was the concept stuck with me, like right from the beginning. I was like, it kind of something stuck with me. This, having different person cover the festivals and
Mhm.
cover all the festivals, and so they asked me to do it again the following year. Of course, the festival didn't happen. It kind of imploded.
Yeah.
In the off season, if you want to call it that. I mean, no, it's a sports term, but same idea for festivals.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So for a variety of reasons, the festival went under. Not in the pretty way. There's I think there was some criminal investigations going on into the happenings of that,
Oh,
and it wasn't very pretty. Let's just put it that way. But rather than just wash my hands of it and leave it at that,
yeah.
I stuck with it and I followed the whole process and was helping the fans that became regular readers and are now regular readers of
Mhm.
Soundcheck as it is now. I would keep them updated through the blog on how to get the refunds and all that kind of stuff. Well,
Yeah.
through this whole process, it caught the attention of Boots and Hearts. And so I never miss out on an opportunity to give props to this amazing woman, Laura Kennedy. She at the time was the public relations director for Republic Live. Just an absolutely amazing woman. She is a huge part of, I mean, Soundcheck in its early days, kind of getting it to the point where it is now. And she is, I mean, actually, interestingly enough, is when we ended up going, and when the Hoedown collapsed, we didn't do the second year, but then the Citizen asked if I would do Ottawa Blues Fest.
Mhm.
So I did Ottawa Blues Fest, and I was also invited to go and do the Boots and Hearts.
Yeah.
And so what I had done at the time was I created a separate blog. I had Ottawa Blues Fest blogger, because it was Hoedown blogger was the Hoedown blog. Then I created Ottawa Blues Fest blogger, and then I created Boots and Hearts blogger. And so it was Laura that actually said, well, why don't you, first of all, maybe don't use the Boots and Hearts name, more so for me and for my protection. So if something goes down with the festival,
Yeah.
I'm not linked and, I'm free and clear. I'm like, yeah. And so she said, why don't you put all of the festivals under one and have one big blog that covered? I'm like, yeah, that's like a really good idea. Right. And so it was, so I took to social media. I think it was through Twitter, and I put, okay, so I'm basically consolidating all of these blogs into one, and now I just need a catchy name.
Yeah.
And so it was tossed around, and then it was actually a reader that I had from the other blogs that said, well, what about Soundcheck blog? And I'm like, stuck. It sounded great.
Absolutely.
I could kind of envisioned a logo with a microphone, and I mean, the rest, I guess you can say, it's history. So, I mean, it kind of grew from there. That was the first year I did Boots and Hearts was my last year with the Citizen, because we outgrew it. I was starting to get invites from festivals all over Ontario. Actually, I ended up flying out to Calgary for the Calgary Stampede.
That's incredible.
And that was really the launching point. So, I mean, the technical launching point probably would have been 2012. So it would be the 9th, but I mean, I still think, and that's why I always say 2011 or whatever. I can't even do my math. My brain is done today. But anyway, so that's why I say that this year is going to be the 10th anniversary, because that's when it started. If it wouldn't have been for that festival and it would never have happened. So I mean, many have asked me if I think something like that starting today would have a similar kind of impact or similar kind of growth. And I don't know. I mean, because it really wasn't that. it was persistence, but I don't know. I mean, you look at a lot of the players that are out there. I mean, you got the reviews
Mhm.
are in, Canadian Beats.
Yep.
We've all been around
Front
roughly the same
porch.
amount of time,
Yeah.
right? And there haven't been a lot of new. Yeah, I mean, Logan came shortly after. I mean, I've known Logan since the Capital Hoedown days, since the very beginning, because he was working on the Hoedown when I first met him. Of course, he's involved as a volunteer at Boots and Hearts and stuff now too. Another great supporter of
Mhm.
Canadian music right there. But I mean, I look at all the organizations like Soundcheck that are out there now, and we've all been around about 10 years,
Yeah.
right? So you don't see a whole lot of new ones. I mean, what you see now more than anything is podcasts, right? I mean,
Yeah. There's
podcasts are are what you're seeing a lot more kind of coming up out of the woodwork. And I think that's great. It's the more avenues you can have. I mean, and
Mhm.
from an artist perspective, the more avenues and the more venues that you can have to promote yourself,
Mhm.
um, the better, right? Because I mean, I'm going to have a certain following on Soundcheck Entertainment that follows and reads everything. Front Porch is going to have their following. Reviews are going to have their regular following. Canadian Beats is going to have their regular following, and all these podcasts are going to have their regular listeners. Whether you're talking to Jim Cressman
Yeah.
or somebody else, right? They're all going to have the regular listeners, so it's just going to boost you. And I think it's really cool to see so many outlets coming out that say, hey, we want to support
Mhm.
Canadian artists.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Soundtrack just kind of grew from there, and it just kind of kept evolving. And I kept, one very simple, I guess, mantra in my head. And that was the fact that my focus has to be and wants to stay on the little guy and help work with them and promote them in any possible way. I mean, like one of the little guys
Mhm.
that we worked with, I mean, indirectly, we promoted a few shows for him through a venue that I was working with, doing social media for, still am actually, the Joshua Bates Center up in Athens, Ontario,
Yeah, yeah.
um, which actually through Mary Ray Knapp. I don't know if I've ever mentioned the name to you, but the godmother of Canadian country music.
Mhm.
So another amazing person. I mean, like I think when it comes to Canadian country music, nobody can hold a candle to this woman.
Mhm.
So I met her about, yeah, I mean, I guess about the same time that Soundcheck first came around, because I had just moved to Athens from Ottawa, and I was looking to get involved in the local art scene as a volunteer. And so I saw that they had this art center that brought in live music. I'm like, hey, I mean, I emailed them like, how can I come on board? What
Yeah.
can I do? And I see you guys don't have any social media presence. I'm good at social media. I can help with that. And so yeah, that started that relationship. So I started promoting the first season that I came on board for. And so she sent me all the information, and one of the artists that stuck with. I mean, obviously it's hard not to. So I get the CD and all this information for a young guy from Alberta called Brett Kissel. And so of course nobody knew Brett Kissel back
Yep.
then. I had never
Yep.
heard of Brett Kissel back then. He was I think early 20s, maybe 21, 22 at the time. Um, and like this was just before his breakthrough with the Hockey Please Come Back.
Yep.
So whenever the last hockey strike is, that'll kind of give you an idea.
When was the
Um,
last time the Leafs had a chance to win the Stanley Cup? Let's go.
yeah, that's too far back. That's too far back. I don't think Brett Kissel was born then yet. Um, I wasn't born yet then.
Words hurt, sir. Words hurt.
Now the Montreal Canadiens, on the other hand,
Oh, let's not chat about this.
but so
This is
yeah,
going to be a very short podcast, sir.
yeah, delete. Um, but so yeah, so I mean, I didn't make it to that first show, but then we brought him back again a second time. It was actually the year, yeah. So I guess the first, I wasn't even Soundtrack didn't even exist yet. The first time he came through, but then the second time, um, I had just come back from Calgary from the Stampede,
Mhm.
and so we had brought Brett in. It was a September show, and it was a bit of a milestone for Brett because uh, it was after the show was announced. He signed with Warner, and the night of the show, his album wasn't even out yet. His first album,
Oh my.
Started with a Song, hadn't even been released yet.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was due a few months later. But the night of the show, his debut single that started with a song
Mm-hmm.
was not only number one on the radio, but that night went number one on CMT with the video.
Yeah. Oh,
And
wow.
so it was just him and, you know, two members, his cousin and another member of his band. Of course, I am horrible with names.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I forget my own, and my kids. I get them mixed up all the time, and usually I
Oh,
just
me.
call them "Hey you,"
Yeah.
"Hey you" with the face, "You" with the mustache.
They come
Uh,
just the same.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, my wife just runs through them all until one of them answers. But, but anyway, um, so yeah, it was like three-piece Brett, black cowboy hat. I met him for the first time that night ever, and it has basically turned into a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I put Brett Kissel. He to me is that guy that I put up on the pedestal because I don't know too many other artists that, well, he doesn't turn like even under Warner. I mean, and Warner's just the people at Warner Music are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got an amazing local rep, Mary. She is absolutely. I mean, the stuff that they do and accommodate us. I mean, an artist puts out a new CD, I'll get an email. Do you want it? Yes, and she'll
Yes,
send it to
please.
me. You know, and I mean, it's a festival's coming up. Oh, do you want to set up an interview?
Mm-hmm.
She'll set up everything, right? And
That's
it's
awesome.
absolutely amazing. So it's really neat to see. And Brett Kissel's the best example of it because, like I said, I mean, he was just started. I mean, like to give an example, like he performed. You remember the song "Raise Your Glass"?
Absolutely.
So he performed that night at the Joshua Bates Center, and it was I think the second or third time he had been there that night, and so he performed the song that night for the first time ever. And actually, if you go to the
No way.
Soundcheck Entertainment YouTube page,
Yeah, yeah.
I actually have that performance on there in its entirety.
That's awesome.
Right. So it is I think it's like 6 or 7, it's gonna be 6 or 7 years ago. Um, but I mean, it's really, really cool. But definitely, I mean, go check it out, go find it because it brings you back to a time when, most people were just starting to discover Brett Kissel,
Mm-hmm.
like within that year, but like a few months later. And then look at him now,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And the relationship that we have with Brett and his team, it's really it's grown over the last few years because you know well, I mean, Brett calls us family. I mean, my wife doesn't like getting photos taken, and if she's at a show or a festival, Brett's like, "Get in here, you don't get to
Oh,
sit out.
yeah.
It's not a family photo unless the whole family's in it."
Family's in. Yeah.
And so it's always cool, and I mean, he's one of the few that
Mm-hmm.
I've really. It's been a real treat to kind of watch him kind of grow through the ranks, and now he's got his U.S. record deal that came in
Yeah.
I think earlier this year, late last year. Um, I mean, this kid, I still call him a kid because he's like half my age still,
I'm
But
pretty sure he
I
might
mean,
be even younger than me, to be honest with you. How old is Brett
yeah,
right now?
I 27,
Yep,
28
definitely
maybe.
is. Definitely is. Younger
Um,
than me.
Again, I mean, I'm not great with ages. I mean, um, but I mean, just a class act
Oh
all
yeah,
around. And I
absolutely.
mean, it's a great example of why it really it pays off in spades when you work with these artists because they don't forget. They
Mhm.
don't forget who was in their corner when they were starting out and who was willing to give them time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I see far too many, especially covering a lot of festivals. That's kind of what it evolved to is we went to really, I mean, for the first couple of years, that's all we were doing. It was covering festivals, and it was like a summertime thing. Yeah, I mean, we weren't getting into any concerts or anything, and
Yeah.
really didn't have an in-depth. I mean, it was in Ottawa. It's not really a big in-depth knowledge of the shows, and there was really nothing big going anywhere, coming into any of the bars and stuff in town.
Mhm.
So really, not a whole lot to go out and cover.
Unless you're
Um,
going to Scotiabank, I don't think it was going to be anything else going on.
yeah, exactly. We weren't getting into the big arena shows for a few more years after that, and so it it kind of grew. I did I mean, everybody likes voting or charts or the polls and all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, And I did a I don't even remember what I called it anymore. I had a name for it, but it's been so long I can't even remember. But it was 2 videos head to head every week.
Okay, yeah.
So 2 music videos. I would put them
Sound
up.
check
People would vote,
showdown.
and then same idea.
Yeah,
And then but I mean, the artists loved that stuff, right? So then they would take that and they would share that. So it was all helping to grow the name. And then
absolutely. Yeah.
you know, I brought in. I knew there was one year I was going to be away. I brought in another writer, and he was. I made a huge difference. Corey Kelly, I got to give him a shout out. He's not with Soundcheck Entertainment anymore, but I mean, let's be realistic here. What he brought into the organization when he came on board, I think 3 years in, I mean, it really paved the way for what was going to be, I think, the biggest next step, and that was the visual element. I mean, I'm a writer, not a photographer. I can do some decent videos on my phone. That's about it. I don't have the equipment. Maybe if I had the equipment, I don't have the budget for that kind of equipment either. And I've always looked at it and said, hey, if somebody else is out there that has the gear, is able to do it and wants to do it, let them do it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So he came in and he had a vision for the visual aspect of it and brought in pro photographers. So started with Ottawa. He was doing some of the stuff down in Toronto. We had Trish Castling, who's with Reviews RN. She did some shooting for us down in Toronto as well. And then it just kind of grew from there. And I mean, Corey left, and he's now running Tour Bus Productions, I think is what it's called now. And so they're doing a bunch of backyard shows in I think the GTA area, maybe more outside the area this summer. I know they did a few last year.
Nice.
So I mean, check it out. I think it's called Backyard, and I think they're on Instagram. But I mean, I got to give him a shout out. I mean, he's not with us anymore, but I mean, he's still with us, not with Soundcheck anymore.
He's here.
He hasn't passed away.
Yeah, he's still living and breathing.
But I mean, it's the visual aspect now, I think, that we're known for. I think, and the amount of promo that we do for artists is like, it really, those 2 things really define. I guess they were the big definitions. I think it's kind of evolved a bit over the last 14 months when there haven't been as many shows. It's been a really interesting year with the pandemic, because we had planned on, I've always wanted to kind of find I guess the monetization of Soundcheck. Like I'd love to do this for a living. Let's be realistic.
Yeah,
if you love what you do, it's not work. And I love what I do. The biggest hassle I have and the biggest hurdle that I have is the fact that I have a day job. And, that makes it very difficult. And actually, even right now, I've got a few interviews lined up for my podcast that I've had to reschedule 3 times because something's coming up with work.
Yeah.
Almost had to do it with you today. Right. So, it was like, shoot, that's not going to work. Oh yeah. Well, maybe it will. Let's just wait and see. But yeah, I mean, it would be a dream come true if I could find a way to do this sustainably, I mean, and not just for me. I mean, I've always said, if I'm going to do it to the point where I'm making profit, it's not just me. Soundcheck isn't just me anymore. It was like a long time ago. I'm just one small brick in this wall, or in this foundation, or whatever you want to call it.
You're the founding
there's
father.
So many. Sure, but there's so many other players involved right now. I mean, maybe 2020 wasn't the best year. I mean, the beginning of it, and then some stuff through the summer in Toronto and my area. But I mean, I have some of the best photographers. I mean, let's just paint you a picture. I mean, anybody that thinks, I get messages all the time, your job is awesome. And it must be such a thrill. Okay, now let me tell you what it's really like. So we applied
on the outside, it looks absolutely incredible and a dream come true.
Yeah, I mean, so let me kind of paint you a picture of what the reality of Soundcheck Entertainment is. Okay, now the Canadian shows like say Tim Hicks, Brett Kissel, that kind of stuff. Take those and set them aside because that's a different story altogether. We have that relationship. I can get a bunch of tickets, and I usually know a couple of weeks, not a couple of weeks. If there's a Canadian tour that's announced for a Canadian artist,
Yeah.
I know that we can get in a Canadian country artist.
Yeah,
Now, the big rock and the big pop, not so guarantees, like Weekend and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not a huge guarantee. There's not a bad chance that you'll get in, but usually just one. So anyway, so let's the big shows like Live Nation, for example.
Yeah.
So Live Nation's got a website that I go to, and it lists all the shows in Canada. So I pick the city that I want to look for, whether it's Toronto, Vancouver, Edmonton, Ottawa, wherever we have somebody, and we okay. So now these are the shows that we want to submit to. So I fill that form out. I submit for one reviewer and one photographer. All right. Now, usually about so now you got to think this can be listed really from the day the show is announced, which is usually 6 months, maybe longer before the show is going to come along. So then usually we get our approval. When do you think? Like, what would you think an outlet like us would find out that we've been approved to go to the show? When do you think we would find out?
Now, I want to say that you'd have like a month in advance, but something in my head says that you're probably like maybe a couple of days or so in advance.
I'm happy with a couple of days.
Oh, you get hours?
I've had 2 hours. I had 2 hours. I had 2 hours, two and a half hours for Roger Waters.
You possibly be like, are you just set up ready to go at that
you
moment
have to
for
be on a show day? On a show day, we're now at that point where, I mean, my photographers will bring their gear to work and they'll be ready to go, so that the minute that notification comes, and they're at their phones, like they've got their phone in their hand, waiting for my text message, because I'll get a notification. It comes to me, and then I will relay that to my team saying, okay, we're in. It's come, actually, interestingly enough, it's happened once with a Canadian artist. Who was it? It was a country act. No, maybe it wasn't. I knew we were going to get in because I was already told by, I knew some people working with the show on Live Nation, because I've got some people on the inside, and they said, you'll get approved. And plus I knew somebody at the label side that said we'd get in. I think it was Cadillac 3.
Okay,
not a Canadian act, but I mean, small enough, and the venue was almost a sure thing anyway. And again, having the label connection tell me that you're going to get in. If you don't get the approval from Live Nation, call me and I'll make sure you guys get in. I was actually in the parking lot waiting, and it was 30 minutes after the doors opened that we got the approval. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's and then so this is the show. So you go in. So I get one ticket, one from me. My photographers, they get to go in, they get to shoot the first 3 songs for each artist, and then they have to go home.
I know you can't see me on here because I'm not talking, but my jaw just dropped. My eyes bulged out of my head because what?
Yeah. So, but I mean, again, because they don't have seats right now. I mean,
it makes sense, but like,
I mean, I like to do it in the sense if the photographer that I'm sending really wants to see the show, I'll say, and most of them they'll do a review. I mean, like I said, we're a fan-based publication. Nobody's expected to be a journalist. I just want you to be able to string 2 words together and have decent grammar. You know,
use spell check and we're fine.
Yeah, basically. And so, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I'll step aside, or I mean,
you'll step
generally if it's a big show and I know the photographer's a big fan of the artist, I'll say, well, stick back and review the show, you know, because I know that otherwise they're out, right? So it's got its pros. I mean, there's some pro photographers that's all they care about. They get in there, they shoot their 3 songs, and then I've got photos. By the time the show's done, I'm already posting photos to social media.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I like that too, you know. But I mean, I always want to make sure that everybody on my team has a chance to see, because I mean, it's part of the fun part, right? It's getting to see the artists that you want to see. And if you're fine with just seeing the first 3 songs, because I mean, let's say, I mean, a lot of artists, they do, you know, some cool, they know that our photographers get the first 3, so they're going to play it up for the first 3 songs, right? I mean, that's just how it is. And I know that one of my photographers once said he didn't like shooting the first 3 songs for the Hunter Brothers because they always do their little backflips.
Yeah.
They don't do that during the first 3 songs. And I guess it's one of those things. I mean, those are antics. They make it good for good photos, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
those are the money shots.
So sometimes, I mean, for the Canadian artists, we can request, and most of the time, the managers and tour managers and stuff, they're like, yeah, that's fine. You guys can hang back and shoot the whole show, as long as you don't get in anybody's way. It's a show by show basis, right? But I mean, and these are the approvals, right? I mean, you can also find out 2 hours before the show that you've been denied.
Oh.
My lowest, I know when you sent me my little Coles notes ahead of the interview, one of the things you said was, what was one of the, I guess, highest moments? Well, I'll tell you what one of my lowest moments was.
Fair enough. Yeah, I want one of those as well.
I'm a huge AC/DC fan.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was so pumped when AC/DC was coming to Ottawa. I don't even know how many years ago that was. I mean, I drove by, I saw the stage. I was like listening to the Shea 106ers, our local rock station. They were doing like AC/DC all day. I had it cranked in my car. I was doing field support at the time, so I was on the road all the time, and I had nothing but AC/DC. I think it was 3 hours before showtime. Yeah, about that. It was not only 3 hours before showtime, it was 30 minutes after the last block of tickets sold out.
Oh,
we found out that we didn't get in.
My goodness.
So that was, and I didn't listen to no word of a lie. I don't think I listened to AC/DC for 6 months.
No doubt, you had a personal vendetta there, even though they had nothing to do with it. It was just like, no.
Yeah, I was downright angry. I was, and my wife, she knew I was pissed, and she's the one that said to me, she said, "You know what? You know that none of this stuff is guaranteed." So she says, "You only have yourself to blame." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Well, if you really want to see a show that you don't want to miss,
buy the tickets. Yeah.
Buy the tickets, because if worse comes to worse and you get accredited, you can always sell the tickets, right? But if the tickets are sold out and you don't get accredited, you're not getting in.
Right.
She knows that. I mean, I'm cheap too, and I'm not going to go out and buy tickets from a scalper, which I could have.
Yeah.
Because if I would have cost me $1,000 for a ticket,
an astronomical price.
I mean, I know there's people out there that do that. That's why scalpers make money. I'm not one of them. I'd rather hold a grudge for 6 months.
Well, funny you should say that. So we have a similar story, and we're gonna swing back to Brett Kissel here for a second, and it's only because when he had the Kick It with Kissel contest going on across Canada for the shows that didn't have any opening support, well, I got second in the competition. And I had that little personal vendetta too. I actually had the ability that if I had purchased tickets from the show, I would be able to go backstage and I get to meet Brett and the rest of the crew and get to sit there and chit chat. But in my head, I was so upset with not being able to open that I was like, no, I'm not going. Yeah. And now sitting here thinking like, you idiot, you had an opportunity to go sit there and chat with Brett Kissel and pick his brain for a couple of minutes before his show or after his show, and you decided to sit at home and cry like a little shit.
Yeah, I know. It's hindsight's 2020, right? I mean, it's you do stuff and then it's always like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best.
Yeah,
it wasn't the best way to do it.
The only thing that upset me the most was I got an email that said like we were in the semifinals, so you had to pick another song and perform it and record it. So I sent it the next day, and it told me that I was already too late. And I was like, oh man. But I mean, who was it? Jesse J, I think maybe it was, that opened here for Brett.
I don't know. I know it was Abby and Beamer at the time in Ottawa. I'm not sure. It might have been even
Nicole Ray. I can't even remember. It was somebody that was, and they were being looked at by Invictus at the time too. So,
yep. Lots of fun, right? There's always, I mean, that's just business. You're gonna have highs and you're gonna have crazy lows. It really, and I think AC/DC really taught me that if you don't, I mean, it's so easy and it's so quick that you can go from a mega high to a super, super low. I don't think I've ever fallen that low, like mentally, in my life before that. And I went through a lot of really rough breakups. I mean, and I don't think that hurt worse than most breakups I ever went through. It was just like, and
Yeah,
I mean, and then it was like after I just started saying to myself, I'm like, it's totally against everything that you basically are trying to put out there about these artists just being people, and you can't take it personally. You just have to do better, and you have to show them that, okay, that's fine, we didn't get it this time,
yeah.
but when you come back next time, we're getting in.
Oh, you bet your
know?
ass we're going to be there one way or another.
Right, exactly. So, we had our next kick at the can. I mean, and we covered a lot of shows between then and there. But the next big, I guess, test was when Guns N' Roses' Not on the Lifetime tour came through. And so I bought tickets that time. I wasn't going to miss out one way or the other. And I'm glad I did, actually, because I was able to watch the show from my seat. The media room was actually, because it was obviously a CFL stadium.
Yeah.
So it was actually in the actual media box for the stadium. So it was like an enclosed room. I'm like, I don't want to enjoy the festival from inside, or the show from inside. I want to be in the field. I don't care if we get rain. I want to be out there because that's part of it.
I want to be where they are.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when I review a show,
you want to feel the whole experience.
It's not only what's happening on stage, right? It's about the experience. And that's what I want people, when they're reading it or when they're watching the social media that we put out during a show, I want people to feel, and I want them to sense, like I want to engage all of their senses. If I could find a way that they could smell the pizza or the stale beer smell that's all over the grass at these festivals, it's part of the festival experience, right? So, I mean, I can give them the sights and the sounds. You know what? We'll have this conversation in 10 years and they're going to have a new app that you'll be able to scratch your phone and smell it. Or
funny that you should say that. I recall, I'm pretty sure I was actually in Ottawa, and it was at one of the science museums, and they had like a SpongeBob, but it was like they called it 4D. So what you did was you sat in the little seat, and as SpongeBob would like hit something that stunk or like splashed on you, it would actually spray you with water, or it would puff the spray in your face so you could actually smell what the video was doing.
But it was really strange, because I don't know if they've just, I don't know if, I know when I was a kid, I don't know if they had it. Do you remember scratch and sniff? Was that a thing when you were growing up?
Yeah.
They don't, like our kids have, what happened to scratch and sniff?
Right?
It doesn't exist anymore. Like there was nothing better than reading a book and it's like, oh, and they smelled like strawberry, and you scratch it, it smelled like strawberry.
Yeah.
What happened to that stuff? I mean, it's like it's gone.
I grew up, forgot all my cologne from those things.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's same idea. But I mean, like they had kids books, like Strawberry Shortcake was one of them. Yeah. My sister, not me, was a big Strawberry Shortcake fan, and I like Strawberry Shortcake, but not the books.
Yeah, fair enough.
But then you would open the book and you could scratch the strawberry, and it would smell strawberry.
That's actually true. I do recall
that. But yeah, I mean that's to me, that's going to be the next. That'll be the next thing. It's really, when you think about it, that's the only thing on social media that we haven't done yet.
Yeah, is you can't experience.
You can see everything, you can hear everything. Heck, you can do virtual reality where it's like you're actually there.
True that.
But you're still not smelling it. So that's the only set, or tasting, but that probably isn't a bad thing. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of things you probably don't want to taste at a concert anyway.
I know. So, but I mean, that's I mean, the end goal right now from the media side of what Soundcheck does is to, particularly from when we're covering the festivals and the events, it's to bring that experience to those that can't be there for whatever reason. I mean, you can't afford it, busy that weekend, whatever.
Yeah.
I also try to, through contests and stuff, I try to make it so that we can get people that normally wouldn't be able to go to these events. My favorite thing is giving people a chance to experience what we get to experience just because we're media. Because I know, I mean, let me be realistic here. There's absolutely no way, for the amount of shows that I go to, just thanks to Soundcheck, I wouldn't be able to afford.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would be able to. I could maybe do Blues Fest, and that would probably be it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Boots and Hearts. They treat us like kings. Like we get media camping, VIP access, I mean, obviously interviews and stuff with the artists, but VIP doesn't get that. But I mean, we get really, really well and treated really, really well. Just amazing group of people at Republic Live. And it's not just towards soundcheck. I mean, this is how they treat media. And you know what? I think it goes a long way. And, you know, but I like to take that experience and not just because, you know, I know what it's like to maybe not be able to have some of those things. And I mean, okay, I was lucky. I grew up in a family. I was able to travel. I mean, I've been pretty much around the world. I mean, I've got my family's from Europe. So, I mean, I've been to Europe countless times and, you know, travel second nature. I grew up with the arts. I mean, like musical theater. I mean, I think I've seen Phantom of the Opera like 17 times.
Oh, wow.
Les Mis at least 10, you know, Cats, I think 8. And it list goes on and on, right? I mean, I've seen all the big Broadway plays. I was lucky. I know there's many out there that aren't. And so I try to use this platform to give that opportunity. So I like to take when we get and we have festivals that give us tickets. I love nothing more than to just the experience. I remember we did one, it was in Sudbury. It was Dallas Smith's show. And we teamed up with a radio station there. I can't remember what, I think it's a pure country station now. But I was like, so I tried it. It was an experiment. Again, fairly early days of Soundcheck, maybe year 4 or 5. But I had people email why they should win the tickets. You know, make your case. Right? Tell me. And so I had this young lady. Actually, it was the mother. Yeah, it was the mother. She emailed us and she said, look, I want to give these tickets to my daughter. She's a huge Dallas Smith fan. I just went through a bout with cancer and my daughter basically stood by me. She was my caretaker. Without her, I never would have made it through. So I wanted to do this. So anyway, so we set this whole thing up. I mean, the story, I don't remember the specifics of it, but so I said, you know what, this touched me. I reached out to the radio station there. I'm like, listen, this is what we're doing. I've got the tickets already.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to team up and kind of sweeten the pot? So we set up dinner before the show, a limo. And to make it even better, I had the radio station call that morning and do it live on the air to tell them that they won the tickets.
That's incredible.
So Trinette Atkinson, she's actually in Kingston now. She was one of the morning hosts. I actually, it's interesting. I have the audio on our SoundCloud page. I still to this day get chills listening to it because to me, that is just listening. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it. Just listening to the pure joy. You know, I mean, to many of us, I guess, diehard music fans that go to these shows that have seen Dallas Smith numerous times, have met Dallas Smith on a number of occasions. It's you don't even give it a second thought. But to somebody like that, who just the shot of being able to go and see him and get a meet and greet is like to make their day or their year or their month by doing something like that is, you know what, it makes it all worthwhile.
100%.
And that's something that I like to do that as often as I possibly can. I know a couple of years ago we sent somebody to Boots and Hearts, similar story, you know, and I love hearing the stories, and I wish I could give all of the stories that give me goosebumps or bring tears to my eyes or a lump to my throat. I wish I could give them all tickets, but you know, many of these I can only pick one. But even just that one makes it worth it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know how many of the festivals that we do this for know that we do that. I think that they would kind of appreciate that too, because you're giving somebody the experience to experience something that, who knows, down the road, it may become, you know, because I mean, I try to tell people, it's like, you know, you could make, if you're into live music, turn that into like your summer vacation. You know, don't have to travel around the world. If you like live music, make that your vacation weekend. You know, maybe rent an RV and just go and have fun with it. Cause I mean, they're a blast. I mean, like I'm a festival nut. And and that was the other thing I said I wanted to do a sound check, because I mean, I've been to too many festivals where when you read the coverage, it starts usually with the opening act, you
Yeah.
know, or like the 6 or 7 o'clock at night, the coverage starts from there. And
Mhm.
then, oh yeah, and earlier in the day, so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so, and so and so were on the stage.
Mhm.
But we didn't have anybody out there to cover it because, well, nobody knows who they are, so we don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's not fair, because
Yeah.
they paid good money to make their music, practice, rehearse. They put a lot of effort into being there.
Mhm.
And I remember I was like second or third year. I think it was the second time I was at Boots and Hearts at Burroughs Creek. Madeline Merlot was, I think, a 2 o'clock in the afternoon set, 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon set. I went down to check out the set, and there was maybe 100 people there. And I'm like, this is sad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is Madeline Merlot. Come on, people. I
Yeah.
mean, she is the writer behind Lady A's Champagne Night, right?
Mhm.
So, um, and I mean, this is obviously before that, but I mean, this girl is one of Canada's stars, and not only that, she's one of the nicest girls you'll ever meet, um, and so talented. She deserves more, especially in Canada, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I'm like, but you know what? We're gonna be there. We're gonna cover, and we're gonna help promote and talk about her, talk about the show. And you know what? Everybody else that wasn't there, they're gonna read about it and say, "Damn it, we wish we were there."
Mhm.
Right? That's, if I can do that with a review for one of these opening acts, or go out and cover an opening act, and I remember, like, a highlight performance wise for me was, I don't remember how many years ago it is now. It's maybe 5 years. It was Ottawa Blues Fest. It was a weird, weird day. There was like the main stage lineup in order. It went from, now follow this, Wu-Tang Clan
Okay.
to Hunter Hayes
Okay.
to Fun.
What?
Yeah. And so,
I mean, if
interestingly
you
enough,
really want to curate to all genres whatsoever, I guess you got it. But wow.
so it
Where's the
was,
blues?
so I was there. I was actually right beside the little catwalk. I was like almost right beside the little catwalk. And my stepson and I were there. And I think Alice Cooper was somewhere in, I'm not sure, it was the same weekend. I don't think it was the same day, but either way, um, it was, I've never seen this happen before in a crowd, but so Wu-Tang finished
Yeah.
and nobody moved, but somehow all the what do they call them? Woo heads, or I don't know, but they all somehow managed to morph into, preteen Hunter Hayes fans, but nobody seemed to move. It was like, what happened here? Because like, we're in the exact same spot we were. The people beside us haven't moved either. The people on this side of us haven't moved either, but now
Yeah.
we've got a totally different audience of people.
That's incredible.
And so then Fun came on, and I can't remember who the band was on the other stage. We were going to go, but we're stuck. You have to imagine, it was a big night. Like, we're talking maybe 30, 35,000 people. Yes, I mean, of course, pre-COVID, we had that number of people in an audience, all armed shoulder to shoulder.
Saliva and sweat dripping from each other.
Yeah, all that glorious stuff that we now fear. It's like, don't touch me. But yeah, so anyway, but there was just so many. We was like, well, let's stick it. I mean, we like a couple songs from Fun, and we'll stick it out and see.
Mhm.
And it started out, and I'm kind of, I don't know. I think I might go check out the other act, and I was like looking around, like, there's so many people though. I don't really want to push my way out of the crowd. I may as well just stick it out. Anyway, so then they started getting into the songs that people knew, and then something amazing happened. The crowd just started singing. And of course, so Nate Ruiz, the lead singer for Fun, it was just suddenly he was like at a loss for words. And so he just walked out as everybody's singing the song back at them.
Yeah.
He walked out onto the center of the stage and just went like this. You could see his eyes were like just welling up. You could hear it in, like, he literally lost his voice. Like, he was this close to breaking down in tears on the stage. And he had to stop. He paused, and the band just kind of in like utter amazement, like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
35,000 people singing their songs. I don't know if they just never had but it was, to me, the most incredible thing to be a part of, to
No
be part of
doubt.
something like that for an artist, that kind of experience, like it is for you today,
Hmm.
finding out that, I mean, who knows how many times it's been on Sirius XM, but that first time that you hear your song, whether it's on radio, or for you on this satellite station,
Hmm.
but then to be part of this group, and it's a couple times now that's happened. That was the first, where you're in the audience and you literally knock the wind out of an artist that's like fun. They're freaking huge. Like Nate
Yeah.
Ruis. I mean, okay, they haven't really done anything since then,
No,
but I
but
mean,
still
they're a
significant
well-known
band.
name, right? They had
Yeah.
huge hits. And so then the next time that something similar happened was only a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4,
Hmm.
High Valley. I think that they actually shared it, but they had 30,000 people uh, sing their song, "Make
I
You Mine."
I remember
Yeah,
seeing that video. Yeah.
and it was like, yeah, I was there, and just to them that was the biggest. That was the experience for them,
Oh,
right? So I mean,
absolutely.
being
Yeah.
part of that. I mean, it's always like for me, it's always people say, well, what are the highs for you? I mean, it's always being part of somebody else's experience, being able to share. It's like same thing with Brett Kissel. That
Hmm.
show, nobody else can say that they were at Brett Kissel's show when his first single was number one, when his first video was number
Yeah.
one on the charts. I was there, Mary Ray was there, and I think about 200 other people were there. Nobody else has that.
That's
Nobody
incredible.
else, right? And that to me, those are the milestones that I celebrate because those are moments in somebody else's career that you were able to share with them. And those are the most important things. And if you can be part of that, to me, that makes all the difference. Now, from a personal milestone, I guess the kind of the aha moment and the kind of like, wow, like pinch me, is this actually happening? Red carpet at the Juno Awards in Ottawa. You
Oh,
know, being able to walk on the red carpet and then sit in the media room at the Juno Awards while the biggest names in Canadian music, not just country,
hmm. No,
biggest names
yeah.
in Canadian music are coming across the stage. You're able to ask them any question. Do you think I asked any questions? No, because I'm like sitting in this media room. I have no idea what to ask. Not even that. I'm not starstruck, right? I mean, star power is lost on me. They're just people.
Hmm.
But
Fair
I
enough. Yeah, we've talked about
recognize
that.
I do recognize the star power. I mean, like Buffy St. Marie walks into the room and it's like, that's Buffy St. Marie.
Yeah.
Coolest moment from the Junos when they were in Ottawa was being able to sit backstage and have a conversation with Sarah McLachlan.
Oh,
Like she's just some random person that's in the room
yeah.
shooting the shit. We were waiting to go in. She was waiting to go in and take photos. And we were just chatting in the hallway. And
That's
then she's about
awesome.
to walk in the room and her, I don't know, her makeup artist or whatever came and touched up her makeup before she went and got photos done. But I mean, this is what I'm really trying to portray is that, all these huge stars, whether it's Garth Brooks, I mean, that's bucket list right there. I haven't met
Hmm.
Garth. It is on my bucket list.
Garth,
Um,
if you're listening,
yeah, I missed out. Yeah, that I want to be part of that moment when you find out that Garth Brooks listens to your podcast.
I want to be a
Uh,
part of that. Can you imagine?
um, but yeah, we'll just invite him on as a guest, and he'll just have me on as a co-host or something. We'll do a joint SCE sound bites and Canadian.
Absolutely.
You'd have to change your name because he's not Canadian country music, or he'd have
No,
to
it
be
would
an
have to be just an
honorary
international
citizen,
edition.
international
I've
edition.
already thought of that in my head. I'm gonna have special editions where I have like other people from like the States or what have you on country music. Because I
But
think
yeah,
that's
so
interesting too, is to figure out country music, what's working over in Europe and what's working in the States. And
well,
I
for
had that in
sure.
my mind. I know I shortlisted myself with the
Let me
Canadian
let me
country music podcast, but
let me put it to you this way: if you hear of an artist from Europe, it's working.
yeah, true that.
Right? Because if we hear of them here in North America,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing is working, obviously. Just like if you're being heard over there, mind you, the way the internet is nowadays. It's really all one.
Hmm.
It's all one planet. It's all one community now,
Yeah, it
right?
really is actually.
I mean, we had the Country Thunder countdown. Unfortunately, he had to shut that. I understand why.
Yep.
I completely get that. I mean,
Hmm.
it's worth discussing. Worth giving a shout out to Dax. I mean, what he
Absolutely.
did and the effort that he put in. I don't know how he did it every week, and not just did it. I mean, I do the playlist for the Canadian Indie Country Countdown. But so not only did Dax every Wednesday
Hmm.
um, tabulate all the votes, in like an hour.
Yeah.
But then he actually did the graphic for the charts, the
Mm-hmm.
3 charts that he had
Yeah, the
before he cut it down
3 charts,
to
the
2.
international,
Then he cut
North
it down to
American, and
1.
the
Yeah,
Kiwi and Aussie. Yeah.
right. And so he did the graphics for the 3 charts. And yeah, there's an and
Oh yeah.
Apple Music playlist and Spotify playlist for all 3 freaking charts.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only did he have that, then he added it. Everybody who's nominated gets into a playlist.
Yeah,
You know,
like
and so it was like, Dax, I mean, I don't know if you listened to Tim's podcast, but I mean, like the day that you announced or the day he announced that I was like, dude, it hurt because of course,
mm-hmm.
Having just worked with Chloe B on her debut single, and we pushed it hard, and we
Yeah.
knew that we were coming in at a top 10 easy
Oh yeah.
on that chart, only to find out, yeah, it's not coming. And I believe what we got from Dax, it probably would have been a number 8 on the international chart, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, Chloe has had such incredible success with
and
that
an
single.
absolutely incredible first single for her too as well.
Yeah, I mean, she's just, blowing it out of the water. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew she would do really well. I mean, this girl is only 17 now. We started working with her when she was just 15.
So that just shows listeners how long it may take.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at Brett Kissel's progression. I mean, it was 10 years before he even signed with Warner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, he was 16 or 15 when he started his career. And he released a number of albums. I have a couple of them that he released pre record label.
Yeah,
you've seen his progression
really good
in the
business aspect in his head when I was listening to one of the podcasts that he was doing.
Well, he's learned. I mean, see,
Yeah.
what Brett Kissel's done that I don't know not many other artists that do. He's a sponge, right? And he got into this business, and he fought. Because I remember I talked to him at a festival 3 or 4 years ago, and I was asking him, I'm like, just asking him, do you want to break into the U.S. market?
Yeah.
And what do you imagine that process to be? And he described it as, he said, I want you to imagine a wall. And he said, I want you to imagine all us Canadian artists as zombies. and so all of these zombies are trying to get over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They will stop at nothing and step on nobody and step on anybody.
Everybody. Yep.
To get over that wall. And so he says, I love everybody in this business. He says, I don't want to fight anybody, or I don't want to step on anybody to get there, but I know it's going to take hard work. When it happens, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, of course, he's humble as heck too. I don't know if I can use the other HE double hockey sticks word on your podcast or not, but
Giver, I think I've already cussed a couple of times. So
but I mean, he absorbs everything. He's been learning the process for years.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess almost 20 years now that he's been in the business, right? So he's been learning and just absorbing everything. And that's what you really need to do, because you learn from the good and you learn from the bad, because there's both parts, right?
Yeah.
And you don't make the same mistakes twice either. And it's just in time, successful. If success is meant to be there and the talent is there, and I believe this wholeheartedly, if the talent is there and the work ethic is there, the success will follow. I mean, look at artists like Susie Corey. Never heard of her a year ago.
Yeah.
And, just boom. And I know you interviewed her on your first podcast, and she just kind of showed up on the scene. But what is unique about Susie, and what I love about Susie, is that as she succeeds, she's trying to help out her peers.
Yeah.
That's what the whole Love Revolution came about, because it was a year where nobody was getting gigs. So she's like, well, I want to create a gig or set of gigs for other artists in my position and give them a chance to evolve.
Absolutely.
And grow.
And now that even that festival's evolved into multiple cities and whatnot too. So
absolutely. So it's really cool to see an artist do that, and so I mean, she's just been a real pleasure to get to know over the last year, as have so many artists have gotten to know over the last year, yourself included. I mean, you may have known my name for a couple of years. I know you sent me a couple of messages. How do I get on your team? How do I get on your team? And I'm like, I don't know what you mean, Tim. I mean, we can help you out. Just let me know what you need,
Well, there was times like I went in like, how can I get to work with you? How you would mention that you were looking for people to work for Soundcheck. I was like, I want in, like, let's do this. Hey guys, Tim Albertson here, host of the Canadian Country Music Podcast. And if you like this episode, we got plenty more. Come check us out. Just search the Canadian Country Music Podcast on all major streaming podcast platforms. And I will see you guys there. What do you think, Trace? Tracy seems excited. You should be too, guys. Take care. Mwah!